All right, let's talk about the 5 systems you're going to need to build in your agency to really grow and scale it. Now, you might have 1 or 2 of these built, but you need all 5 working in a cohesive system as a business. The first one is lead generation. You need those opportunities coming in the door. You need that consistent pipeline of all those opportunities. The second one is sales. And sales is an obvious one, but you need to be able to take those opportunities and close enough of those at the right level, usually in the monthly recurring revenue, to be able to fund everything. The third one is probably the biggest value driver, and that is service delivery. So everything from onboarding to client success, client engagement, getting testimonials, getting referrals, but just delivering and doing a great job for your clients. And then the fourth one is your financial system. Are you are your services priced right for profit? Do you run a healthy financial business that's profitable when you want to take profits, and that's not as profitable when you want to grow, and you're investing that revenue in growth in certain areas. And then the fifth one, maybe underrated, but leadership and communication. And that's not just leadership at the executive level or the owner level and the management team. That's also leadership among department heads and leadership, self leadership, which is an interesting way to look at it. Does everybody on the team understand your culture? Do they communicate well with each other during a process? And the systems built to facilitate that communication among the team are really important. So those are the 5. I'll go into detail on each. All right, let's talk about that lead generation system of yours. Now, I'm not going to go into a big broad picture of brand positioning, brand marketing, brand design. Um, that is part of lead generation. That's part of that, but performance marketing really gets down into lead generation. So you need that brand marketing side. So don't forget about that. It doesn't mean you don't have that, but what I'm talking about here is your marketing channel strategy and which channels are you marketing in, and that might depend a lot on which type of business you're going after, which type of client, what is your ideal customer profile, and which channels are they in that you can attract those folks. And you can have outbound channel strategy, like cold email, for example. You could have inbound, like SEO and organic search or paid advertising. And then you have to think about the offer that you're positioning. Now, that can be at the top of the funnel or tofu, middle of the funnel, mofu, and bottom of the funnel, bofu. I know those are funny, right? But your offer could be different at different places in that funnel. So you have to kind of think through that, as well as the conversion path. What does that mean? Well, if you have an outbound paid advertising campaign going on Google, what is the offer that's going to attract that? What are people searching for? Because they're on Google, they're expecting to go to a website. So do you have that landing page built out? How is your booking flow, your calendar there? Are you booking that? And what happens when someone books? Do you nurture them? When they have a discovery call scheduled, is there all that nurturing? So that whole conversion path is important for lead. And lead routing. Are they all going to the owner? Do you have salespeople? Do you need to have roundtable thinking through that? And of course, one of my partner's favorite things to talk about is pipeline hygiene. Are you keeping the sales pipeline in your CRM updated with proper sales definition, close loss reasons? Do you reactivate an opportunity so they get nurturing to kind of come back to you? Keeping that information in those opportunity cards in your CRM, whichever one you use, And updating those cards on a regular basis is really important to lead generation because you're investing in marketing to get those folks to raise their hand or download something or connect with you on social. And if they become an actual opportunity in a live sales pipeline, the hygiene, the steps you take, the information you keep updated during that sales process is going to help lead generation, believe it or not. Because you may have people that want to talk to you and are going down your process and then they disappear or they ghost or they kind of don't come back. Well, you got to have a way to get them back. So that's really important. And then attribution. How do you decide what's working and what's not? And you have to have that attribution model. So if you don't have all this system documented, your pipeline is basically like, I feel like it's, like vibe pipeline. I feel like it's a little bit of, well, I think this is going on. And it's all maybe in your head as the owner, or it might be in a salesperson's head, or maybe in a spreadsheet. Having the system that attracts leads, brings them in at different places, helps you figure out how to attribute where those leads are coming from and being able to make decision. That system is critical. And then we'll talk about the next one that relies on the lead generation system, which is your sales system. Okay, let's talk about some people's favorite system to build, but maybe the hardest one to build past the founder or the owner of the business. And that's the sales system. And a sales system isn't, hey, we have some conversations, we see how it goes, some we close, some we don't. It is really getting down to the science of who your ideal customer profile is, why they buy, what kind of psychological profile do they have, what role do they play, all the things that go into why are they qualified, what size of business are they, what type of business, maybe where they're located, everything that qualifies them, and all the things that do not qualify them. Maybe it's a culture match. You don't want to bring clients in that don't match your culture because then there's friction there and not the good kind. What is your discovery framework when you have a conversation? Are you talking to them about sales goals? Are you talking to them about brand positioning? What are the questions you have? How do you diagnose and quantify their pain that they're having that you can help them with? Sales systems also include the proposal creation. So templates that you have, packaging that you have, any pricing logic, any way that system that lets you get approvals for those proposals, everything around objection handling, scripts you might have for different types of conversations. Closing a cold lead from, let's say, cold email marketing is very much different than closing someone that comes in from an organic search to your website and then wants to start talking to you, or referral from a partner. Those all, you need to understand how to close those all if your lead generation system is bringing those to you. Any kind of follow-up cadence that you have. We always talk about pillar number 2 being sales speed to lead and sales follow-up. So any automation that you have or human touch points or calls that you build out in workflows or sequences, depending on your CRM, all of that stuff has to be included in that system. And then your handoff process, or what we like to call knowledge transfer, sales knowledge transfer. So once sales has 2 or 3 or 5 conversations with a prospect, that's like a mini relationship. And now you've got to hand that person off to onboarding and your production team. And that experience that you provide is really, really important. Now, this category alone reduces the founder involvement dramatically because it prevents the I need you to join a call moments that happen in the process. So if you're an owner of an agency or a founder of an agency and you have people that are kind of working on the sales process and helping, and they come to you and say, "Oh, I just need you on this call. I just need you on this call. Can you help? Can you help?" Having a sales system eliminates all of that and lets the owner focus on the things that they need to focus on to lead and manage the company and beyond. And we'll talk about that in another video. But the sales systems, it's not just, hey, I close business. There's more to that system and that process that you have to get right. And so we'll talk about the next system, which is your service delivery system, and why that's the biggest value driver. All right, the next system I want to talk to you about is the biggest value driver in your business. It's the heart of your business, and that is your service delivery system. And that would include everything from onboarding new clients, getting access, setting expectation with clients, kicking things off, all the structure around the timelines of getting things started and moving and in rhythm, scope control. So how you prevent that whole just one more thing kind of scenario. So anybody that manages your accounts or delivers for your accounts, and also kind of what we call the production workflow, any briefs or questions that you ask, how you get approvals and change requests, version control. What's most important too in this is that you have your SOPs, your standard operating procedures. So everybody knows what they're doing. When you get information from sales and the system that says, all right, we've made a sale, now we've got to go deliver and get results. So that also includes any communication cadence, whether you meet weekly, biweekly, monthly, depending on the client, what you report on, how you position that reporting, where you get that information from, how you determine attribution on performance, closing the sales loop. That's a smaller process within that, where marketing and sales with client are communicating. So if your job as an agency is to deliver leads and maybe set up sales speed to leads so that sales can respond, when sales takes that opportunity and provides a quote or a proposal and they close that and generate revenue from that, all of that information needs to be shared between the agency and the client. We call that closing the loop. And then also all of your client retention triggers. So normally what you might have in place is, let's say, a standard monthly call with your quarterly business reviews where you might change strategy, and then your annual reviews. How did we do last year? What are our goals for this next year? Those are things also, as you're looking at, reporting, or the system for reporting, how well are you doing with that client? There's a system behind, oh, they complained about this, or they said these things. So that moves that client into a risk status, which means they haven't quit on you yet, but they will if you continue down this road. And there are different checkpoints along the way to assess risk in terms of client retention. But your service delivery changes depending on who's managing that account. If that's the case, then you really don't have a delivery system. Now, there are nuances to that, but because you have certain personalities, but in terms of getting results and following a process and providing an experience, that's what your system is for. So you should be able to swap people out, although we'll get into that in another video in terms of how to transition client account strategists or managers. Don't do that willy-nilly. Anyway, having a system for your client service delivery is so important. It includes a bunch of things, and it makes sure that you keep clients longer, so your lifetime value over your client and the relationship you have with your client is more valuable. Okay, let's talk about the fifth and final system, a really important one. All these systems are important, but we're going to talk about leadership and communication, that system. Um, Having a solid leadership and communication system ensures that good agencies become real businesses, real healthy businesses that have value to them, that create wealth amongst owners, and also um, provide a great living for employees and as a great place to work. When we're talking about leadership, I think the place that I'll start with is the weekly leadership meetings. Now, if you're running EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, which we do in all of our agencies, um, that's called a level 10 meeting. It has a very specific agenda. I won't go into that necessarily, but it gives a 90-minute meeting agenda that allows you to connect on a personal, professional level. It allows you to hear information about what's going on, good news, bad news with clients or employees, kind of highlights, not going into the detail. It allows you to go through your weekly KPI scorecard together. And then, really important, it allows you to what they call IDS, or identify, discuss, and solve issues. Now, there's a process to it, but the reason you get good at identifying, discussing, and solving problems, the faster you do that, the faster you can remove barriers or problems in your business and prioritize. So, on a weekly basis, by the way, your KPI scorecard, which I talked about in the financial system, is tied to your annual, quarterly, monthly, weekly goals for KPIs. And these also help you get into what we call accountability rhythms, meaning who owns what's the priority, what did we get done, and those typically happen on a quarterly basis, and we call those rocks, those big priorities or initiatives. And if you are accomplishing your initiatives, your milestones, you're removing rocks, you're getting traction from the vision of your business to the traction of getting things done and building out systems, solving problems, generating revenue, keeping people motivated, like all the things that go into a company. And you also want to make sure that you understand team communication norms. Those norms are really about how you organize your communication with your department leads, and how they do that on down. How, for example, how do you use Slack? How is Slack to organize? Which channel do I communicate what into? And that kind of takes a little bit of time to organize that, but it's definitely engineered. And having a system that does that, and then overall kind of individual performance scorecards for individual roles so that they understand their individual KPIs that they're accountable to. So maybe the service leader has client retention or churn, might be the KPIs that they monitor and are accountable to. So each department kind of has those. The leadership and communication style too has to go into your culture. Now, culture could be a system in of itself, but its culture is woven into everything. And when you talk about communication, every week having a way to identify if someone lived up to a cultural norm or standard. So one of the ones we have in an agency is pursuit of excellence. Hey, I want to let Tyler know that he just really nailed the pursuit of excellence that we strive for in this agency because he did XYZ ABC this week. And I just want to give Tyler a shout out on Slack here. We have a special channel for that. You can have also awards for that kind of thing in all hands meetings, either quarterly or annual, depending on how you want to set it up. But that whole part of it is communication and leadership. It lets people know that you care, that they're doing a good job based on the culture of your company that you've established. Now, of course, if you don't have that culture defined and established and what it means to everybody or should mean to everybody in your agency, then start there. But it really is the idea of going from a good agency to a great business and a real one that's healthy and healthy for everybody that's involved in it. Okay, the fourth system I'm going to talk about is your financial system. Now, when you're a smaller agency, you might say, "Oh, I see money coming into the bank account. This is great. I've got a good financial system. We're making money." But a financial system is a little bit more to that. I mean, that is part of it, but let's start with pricing for services, pricing for profit. You want to make sure that all your lines of service, like your website development and design, your SEO, your paid advertising, your social media, whatever service line items you provide, have a clear profit margin so that when you sell them, you know you're going to be profitable. And in order to do that, you have to understand the cost of goods, your COGS, or cost of service in the case of an agency. You have to be really clear on what those COGS are for that particular line of service and how profitable that line of service is. Beyond that, you start to get into what is your forecasting capability, your monthly forecasting capability in terms of cash coming in, cash going out. What financial benchmarks do you have to make to hire? So you have staffing and capacity planning that has to go with forecasting. Simple terms. Hey, when we get to 185K in monthly recurring revenue, we're going to hire these 2 roles. And you have that planned out. Obviously, billings and collection, that's probably the first one that you get really good at. So, hey, we close a new client, a statement of work is issued and signed off on, billing gets set up, the invoice gets set up, reminders for that get set up. But also what happens in terms of if they don't pay, hopefully you've got that automated billing set up. And then also offboarding. So if a client churns or you have partial churn, you have to make sure to adjust your invoicing process. So if they're paying you $2,800 a month now and they churn what we call a partial churn, they're going to drop down to $2,000 a month. Their next invoice needs to be $2,000 a month for whatever that change is. So you have to have a change request process that gets into your finances. And then one of the big things that we focus on when I work with agencies is profit first, so profit allocation. And I don't want to go all the way into what profit first is and how it works and why it's important, but everybody thinks and they know, oh yeah, profit, that's good. That means we're making money. Yeah, that's true. But getting steady profit month over month, year over year, quarter over quarter, that takes a discipline around managing your financial system. And then of course there's weekly KPI tracking where that's tied to your finances. So you want to talk about sales, service, capacity, churn, accounts receivable. Those are the types of things you need to get in. And I've got a whole KPI worksheet that takes your annual goals, and translates them into quarterly goals, which translates to monthly goals and down to weekly goals. That's how you need to do it in your KPI tracking sheet. And that all ties to your financing system. The other part about a finance system is it also accounts for compensation. So certain roles get paid not just, a salary, but what's your bonus structure? How did we know that that person hit their bonus level, and what level was it? What did they get paid? Um, those kinds of things. Having a strong financial system really reduces the chaos in your business because it reduces the amount of surprises. Like, oh, I didn't think we were spending money on that, or that shouldn't have cost that much. Ask me how I know this next one, which is I thought we stopped collecting for that client and therefore we didn't have to pay for a certain piece of software anymore for them, but I see we're still paying for it. That happens all the time when you're a little bit of a younger, inexperienced agency. Anyway, your financial system ties to everything: your revenue, your cost of goods, and your expenses. And having those categorized right so you're profitable is really, really important. But also, it ties into the other things about pro forma, looking forward. How are we going to be doing, not how did we do? You need both of those in terms of your financial system. Very key piece and critical that you have it. And just having a bookkeeper sometimes isn't enough. You need someone who understands your business to create that system with you.